Thank you so much for joining me in this video. It's been a long time. Today is October 11, 2019. My previous video was on September 20th, and after that I had been traveling and lots of other commitments, so was not able to bring up a one-to-one video like this. Today we are going to speak about depression and how to handle the same. Looking at this texture, please don't think that I'm depressed now. I'm quite okay, and this is kind of a trend, and I'm just trying to withstand the trend and fashion, and I don't know whether I'm doing enough justice for the trend or not, but I'm certainly not depressed. I never will be. What do you think about depression? Depression is a state of mind, choice 1. Choice 2, depression is not a state of mind, it is a disease. Choice 2, no, depression is neither a state of mind nor a disease. It is just an occurrence that comes for everybody's, life cycle, in everybody's life cycle. Or depression is something else. I mean, which comes and goes, and it is more on timely basis and periodical basis. And people have their own lifestyle, and their lifestyle is taking them to depression. You might be having plenty of assumptions like this, but depression is actually a state of mind. People very easily utter the word, you know what, please don't call me for the next 10 days, I'm depressed. Please don't count me into the team, I'm depressed. Please don't associate myself with the other members of this organization because I'm very depressed these days. As if they are into a club, they call themselves as depressed people. In fact, it's very insane. When they call themselves as depressed, they are actually, they can instead call themselves as defeated. I'm done with my life, and I'm just I'm quitting my life. That's even more better than calling themselves as depressed. So you can ask me, okay, Mr. Money, and you might not have been depressed so far, but you never know what depression will do, because I have experienced. That's where my question lies. How do you know what you have experienced was depression? Do you have evidence? Do you have any review of literature stating that what you are experiencing was depression? Did anybody clinically diagnose that you are suffering from depression? Have you been to a shrink, and have you been to a psychiatrist or somebody so that they evaluated you and they told you that you are a depressed person? Even otherwise, I would say, even if it was diagnosed that you were a depressed person, you were not depressed. You believed that you were in depression. And mostly people who have lost in their business, and the elegant women who are out of their pregnancy, post-pregnancy depression, and people who have lost their job, and people who have surrendered themselves to various amounts of failures and not being able to get out of the failure and not being able to cope up with the expectations of the other people. They all think that they were facing depression. Few of the cases that I mentioned now had regular encountering of depression. I totally agree with that. But not every second person and third person can call themselves as depressed people, because depression does not come according to your climatic situation or according to your life's condition. Depression comes through stages. So the first thing that we are going to see in this video is the stages of depression. You are watching this video now. Maybe some areas of your brain is looking forward to this information because you want to know something about depression. So let me tell you the stages. So maybe you can self-evaluate where you actually stand, in which stage you are really in. If you would like to call yourself a depressed person, go ahead, call yourself as a depressed person. But please understand, you are in a certain stage now, and you need to understand which stage you are actually. The first stage of depression is sadness. You're sad about something. You have a sorrow. You're literally worried about something. And then the second stage, from the sadness, you get into the stage called as rage. The sadness has given you some anger, and you stayed in the state of mind of anger, and that has given you rage. One event or one set of people or one group of people, one circumstance might have triggered that sadness, and you have been staying in that sadness for quite a number of time, for quite long, and you had advanced yourself from sadness to rage. And after rage, you get frustration. The third stage is frustration. You are frustrated. You are not very much okay with whatever that is happening in your life. You are not aligned, and you are not on course with the turn of events that are happening around you. You are not on course with the professional activities that you are doing on a routine basis. You are throwing anger and you are showing anger to everybody, and you literally find some sort of reasons in everything that will give you some anger, frustration. Third stage. You got into sadness, you got into rage, you got into frustrated position. And after frustration comes dejection. You get dejected, you get dull, bored, and you get completely weary and tired of everything that is surrounding. You postpone eating, you postpone good sleep, you postpone rest, and you don't want everybody to come and have socializing with you. You don't want somebody to come and give you a pat on the shoulder. You don't want to listen to any encouraging words. You don't want to watch anything inspirational. Dejected, putting everything away. And then comes the next stage. After dejection, you get into the stage of suppression. You suppress all the desires. You put all the factors that are really very clinical in nature, and you suppress all the biological needs, and you suppress all the things that are popping up into your brain. Previously, you were so much excited and enthusiastic about all those events. Now, you don't want them to happen to you. Suppression. And then after suppression, you get into a state or stage called as isolation. You isolate yourself from the public atmosphere. You isolate yourself from family. You isolate yourself from friends. And all the technological advancements that are really dominating your life, you give into everything, but then you don't have any control over it. You just detach all the strings, and you're dumped. And it is a very, very, very painful position. Isolation. And after isolation, you come to a stage called as depression. So from sadness till isolation, there are very many stages, and you have a pre-assumed thought. In any of these stages, if you are stuck, you think and declare that you are depressed, which is wrong. You can call yourself as a depressed. You are clinically prone to be depressed only if you are through all these stages and you are into a clinical stage after the stage called as isolation. Now tell me, were you really depressed? We'll talk about the previous year. We'll talk about the last week. We'll talk about the previous month where you declared yourself that you are a depressed person. Now you tell me, after listening to these stages, were you really depressed? Definitely not. It's not like some positive inclination information to you. No. I'm against positive thinking. I am always supporting realistic thinking. So on the basis of realistic thinking, I can stick my neck out and say that you are not depressed. You're stuck in any of these stages, right? So any of the stages, right from the sadness till isolation, you're stuck into it. Now, even now, while you're watching this video, you are stuck into somewhere. Because if you're a depressed person, you are not going to watch any of it, because you will not have the tendency to spend time watching some quality information. You will not have the tendency to spend time to listen to some quality things or listen to even music. So good news is that you were never depressed. Alright, so we have discussed that you are not depressed, and now let us move on to the next level. What to do if you're stuck up in either of these stages? It is as similar as being in depression when you're stuck into these stages. Okay, so it is as worst as being in depression. There is a concept called as quality quantifiers. Quality quantifiers simply means your ability to measure the suffering that you have. Okay, so do you remember the difference between peak performance and disempowering performance? Peak performance, the state where you were too good in your occupation or in your studies if you're a student. The peak performance is not something that you can forget. In quality quantifiers solution, you need to take stock of all the peak performance stages that you encountered in your life. Remember the peak performance stage? Let's say, for example, if you had done something so much good, and it has been a subject of appreciation from very many people around you, and the people have literally acknowledged and they have understood the worth of yours, and they have told you in your face that you are really good in this, and we are so happy to see you in this. You have done something really stupendous, significant job. Likewise, the appreciations that you received for doing something, that's called as your peak performance state. Depressed people have the ability of switching this peak performance mode off on an entirety. So if you are in either of these stages, you have already done that because you have called your peak performance stage as a dormant one. Like you would say, if I remember, okay, remember when you were a sales executive way back in the year 2009, 10 years back, you are doing this, you are doing that, you are flying with colors and you are really blazing away. If I talk about that past experience of yours, which was your peak performance, you would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. So what? This is going to be your response, which is a clear indication that you are stuck up in any of the depression stages. Because you don't want to recollect that. I mean, the juice has been drained out and you don't want to remember that at all. Quality Quantifier solution comes to life only when you are taking stock of all the peak performance stages. You need to really introspect. You need to really go back to your lifeline. You need to make a literal virtual timeline travel to get all the peak performance list. 2003 to 2007. Those 4 years, I would say, they were my peak performance areas. You know, I was really good in whatever I was doing. That was the time when I was identified as a person, as a soft skills trainer. My career emerged really well in a private institution. And students started liking my services. So that was my peak performance. Likewise, you must be having that has been turned gray. Your peak performance stages have been turned gray. So step number 1 in Quality Quantifiers is list out all the peak performance areas of yours. The important point about peak performance introspection is when you go back and when you pick those incidents, your mind is wiring itself in a different mechanism. The pattern is being rubbed off and you are thinking in a new dimension. That itself will be a cure for the depression stage that you are in. But let me tell you, the excitement meter will be very, very low during this, the first step. The first step of Quality Quantifier is to identify the list of peak performance circumstances, and when you are writing them down, your excitement will not be that much good. So now the second step is you are going to collect the list opposite to the peak performance stages. We call that as disempowering emotions. Okay? In a way, we can chunk this down and we can simplify this as empowering emotions, disempowering emotions. The empowering emotions of the past and disempowering emotions of the past. So when you are able to collect these two lists, okay, and if you are really collecting almost 10 incidents in the peak performance, also known as empowering emotions, and 10 or 15 things in disempowering emotions, the non-peak performance state, that is the disempowering emotion, I think you have done a sizable job in Quality Quantifier solution. Now, this Quality Quantifier, this dictum itself is sounding a little bit arithmetic, doesn't it? It appears as if it's a mathematical concept. Of course it is. Disempowering emotion, because Quality Quantifier is a kind of a caliper. It is a kind of a device, a vector that is going to give you clear insight about the life and the intensity of a disempowering emotion. Let's say, for example, after 15 minutes of time, you got a list of the disempowering emotions, some 15 or 20 disempowering emotions. In 2007, this happened. In 2005, this happened. In 2011, this happened. In 2013, this happened. All these, when I put together, oh my God, my mind is turning up disempowering emotion. Right? So the sensory, auditory response system of your brain reacts in its own way whenever you think about these disempowering emotions. So, how can Quality Quantifier be done? I'll explain very simple and very clearly. Listen to me carefully. Take one disempowering emotion. Take one situation. Let's say, for example, in 2006, if this person had not walked out on me, if this person had not said that particular word, if this person has not done that particular thing to me, example, fill in the blank. So that particular thing, you take that disempowering emotion and use this Quality Quantifier. In Quality Quantifier is a metric, it's a scale. 1 being less intensity, the lowest intensity, 10 being highest intensity. Okay. So in quality quantifier, in that scale, we have got 1 being holding the lowest intensity and 10 holding the highest intensity. Now take that disempowering emotion. Okay. And measure that disempowering emotion's intensity using quality quantifier scale. You need to ask one question. Simple. One question will give you the answer. That question says, you got to ask, what is the level of intensity I have given for this disempowering emotion? Yes, I repeat, what is the level of intensity I have given for this disempowering emotion? Leave alone the natural intensity that is supposed to be formed for the disempowering emotion. That's secondary. But the primary thing is, what is the level of intensity you have attached to that disempowering emotion? Give it a mark. As I told you, giving 1 mark being low intensity, only low intensity. This is not that big. It's not as bad as I assume. 5 being somewhere in the middle. 10 being too high. Too hot to handle, man. Too high. High intensity. I'll tell you, my dear friends, if you are measuring that on a calm basis with a helicopter view of the entire scenario that has happened, you will come to a revelation that the intensity mark will be just 2 or 3 only. But you had been giving 9 or 10 or even more than that during that situation. And that is why you are in such state right now. If you are able to come to this revelation, then that's a wonderful moment. Yes, why have I been giving so much of intensity to it? Why have I been giving so much of weightage to it? God, I have been so much stupid to give almost about 7 to 8 in that moment. But right now, when I am introspecting, I am coming to understand that it is not that much intensified. It doesn't even worth it to give that much intensity. I have been stupid to give so much of weightage for this. This should happen with all the disempowering emotions. And it's not over. Come to the other list. Your empowering emotions. The peak performance states. Okay, right? Quality quantifier scaling should be done for that also. In 2008, in the month of August, this happened in my office. And so many people, I was looking like a larger than life man, and so many people were giving me the appreciation. But that happiness was short-lived. Okay, how much intensity scaling, the quality quantifier scaling, how much intensity you gave. My God, 2008, with the given fact, it was almost about 11 years back, I should have given the intensity of 7 or 8 for this. But that emotion was short-lived. I was even remembering that incident only for 2 days. I have given 2 or 3 marks. Weird. You'll feel that. So, what is the logic here? This quality quantifier vector has made you understand one logic. And what is the logic? You have not given enough intensity for the empowering emotions. And you had given too much of way high intensity for the disempowering emotions. And that is why you have been dragged down to $1 million vehicle called as depression stage. Whose fault is this? God's fault? Dad's fault? Mom's fault? You. Congratulations. So, you have to take all the disempowering emotions. The empowering emotions can wait. But take all the disempowering emotions and try to ask questions and try to rate with the quality quantifying vector and try to mark. If you have got 15 disempowering emotions, I bet, except 1 or 2, you will be giving only 2 or 3 marks out of 10 for all the disempowering emotions, which means you will come to a current revelation and realization that you have been giving so much of weightage that was more than deserving for it. and you have not given so much of intensity that was actually deserving for the empowering emotions, for the peak performance emotions. So the weightages that you had been giving for all the emotional situations, the weightages that you had given for the empowering emotions, which is very, very strong, and disempowering emotions, which are supposed to be kept down, you are doing this completely topsy-turvy. So that's why I'm saying mistake is yours. So this is called as quality quantifiers. A small yet a very big solution for taking you out of this rut called as depressed stage. It's all about simple mechanism, simple research that you make. I might be giving you almost about 5 or 10 solutions for taking you out of depression stages. But I want you to do this one picture perfect so that you get out of depression. You do this first. In my next video, I'll come up with the second solution. Remember the quality quantifiers. Let's take a quick recap, shall we? To make the long story short, first of all, you have to prepare the list of empowering emotions and disempowering emotions of the past, which means the peak performance circumstances and the non-peak performance circumstances happen in the past. Second step, take this disempowering emotion alone and try to have quality quantifier vector scaling. 1 being low intensity, 10 being high intensity. Taking each and every disempowering emotion, you got to ask yourself a question: how much mark can I give for the level of intensity for this disempowering emotion? When that moment happened in the past, when that particular circumstance happened in the past, you had given big and too high and more than even proportionate kind of mark for it. And now you will realize that you were supposed to give only less mark for it. It did not merit so much of attention, but you had given that more attention regardless of the realization that it does not merit. At that point of time, it was slumped. I mean, one sense of your brain mechanism was switched off, and you didn't realize that we did not give so much of response to it, but you had still given the response. So go through all that, do the quality quantifier vector scaling for every disempowering emotion. Make up, please. And then do the same for the empowering emotions, your peak performance stages. And that will give you enough energy. And this very task that is done for about 20-25 minutes will give you so much of energy, so much of relief. And it will definitely take you out of this bad, vulnerable ground called as depression stage. And remember the thing that I mentioned at the beginning of the video: you are never depressed and you never will be. So take the simple step. You'll be out of the depression stages soon. Live strong, keep shining, and I'll be meeting you in the next video.